everybody. Welcome to Women Making Big Sales. And today we're going to be talking about conversations and team building for small entrepreneurs. There's tons of great content. And again, I'm so honored to bring on another experienced sales pros to talk about these important things. Because let's face it, we need inspirations and we always need new ideas to help us sell better and sell to bigger companies. So today I'm inviting Nancy Bleeke. She's the president of Sales Pro Insider and the author of this amazing book called Conversations That Sell. And she has worked with a lot of companies in manufacturing, financial services, and helping companies sell better by growing great teams and also talk about conversations that sell. I think we have lots to talk about. I'm super excited. We got tons of content, and let's get started. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Melinda.
Hi. Well, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us. I mean, before the interview, we've already brainstormed so many different ideas that we could talk about. First of all, could you just tell the audience a little bit of what you do and how you help your clients?
Okay. Well, we help companies grow their sales, and that means a lot of different things. So it might start with an audit or assessment on what are the skill sets or the processes that are working for you or not. And then we can employ training, consulting, and coaching to help each person perform at their maximum.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And, we've got tons of stuff to talk about, but before we get to the content and really dig into your knowledge and your experience, can you share with us, one of the great success stories of you getting big companies, how you got that big account? I mean, you don't have to talk about the names, but give us inspirations how you were able to get that great account.
Well, I've been at this as a consultant for 20 years, and so it's been an interesting journey in working with all different size companies. And as many of you know, when you're working with big companies, there's additional considerations. There's more people involved in the decision, it takes longer, et cetera. And so when I think about one from just the last year and a half, 2 years that I'm really proud of myself, it's when one of those situations where I knew it was me and 4 other businesses that they were looking at. So it's that whole sending out an RFP, they sent out an RFP kind of, it was verbal, and then it was, talking to one person, and now you're invited to have 45 minutes with our 9-person decision-making team remotely. Wow. To tell us what you have. And by the way, it's in 2 days, and the only spot open is the first spot, which no one ever wants the first spot. And so I knew that the long-term sale opportunity was so big that even though I was supposed to be at a conference all day, I was going to make that morning meeting. And in brainstorming with my team, I'm like, how do we separate ourselves from everyone else and at the end of the day be memorable, right? Because we're gonna set a standard. And so what we decided was that we were going to set the standard for blowing every other company out of the water by being ready to give a presentation, but instead backing off and saying, we don't think it's time for a presentation because we don't know enough about your objectives, right. Whether all 9 people are on the same page. And I jokingly said, and my objective is that at the end of the day, you're going to say, gosh, Nancy and her team set such a high standard, no one else even came close. And so what happened in that 45 minutes is I set the stage with saying, I'm ready. I'm ready to share all the information you asked me. And I can do it in 5 minutes or I can do it in 40. Why don't we start by hearing from each of you why this initiative, it was for sales training for their whole company, is important to you, what you most need for your team, etc. Well, guess what? That conversation took 35 minutes because
that's amazing. Yeah.
They were talking and they were understanding more about each other, and I was facilitating their group conversation. And then at the end, when I said, okay, we have 10 minutes left, and they said, can you give us just a 5-minute overview of capabilities? And I did. I was prepared to just show 3 PowerPoint slides, give them an overview. And the next day when I got a phone call from the lead, she said, it was just what you said. At the end of the day, when we started looking, someone goes, oh, it's what Nancy said. We're going to think nobody else compared because everyone came in and did a pitch. Mm-hmm. And I started a conversation with a group of people. And so it went very quickly after that. There was supposed to be an on-site visit with 2 companies. And within 2 weeks, they had even decided not to talk to anybody else. And we were in without ever even going on site for a 3-year initiative. Yeah. So it's my thought on what did I learn from that is don't be afraid to do the right thing for the sale and not what they're demanding because it might not be the right thing.
I love this story because a lot of times, we forget, we're thinking that, we're pitching, it's our customer, we need to get this clients. But a lot of times we're the leaders, right? We have to lead them. We have to remind them. They need our help. What a great story.
Well, and I say, selling these days is nothing more than conversations that lead someone through their decision making. And that's why when you're selling to big companies, it's a more complicated decision-making process. Yeah. And they often value someone that can help them get through it more efficiently.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to break it down, your success story, so that, our audience will understand more because we have very intelligent and ambitious women. So we want to know everything.
Yay.
Well, could you just share with us how you got into the pitch, how you were considered the right place? Did you know about this company? Was it through a contact or was it online? How did you get in front of them first?
This company actually came through on a lead on the website. Okay. But it was still 9 months until the point where I got to be in a conversation with them because even though they sent me a lead, and how many of you have this? You get a lead, you get a referral, you get a connection through your network, and still you can't get that conversation going. So the woman contacted me and I responded immediately. That's one of the keys. They say you need to respond within, I think it's less than an hour sometimes because they've moved on by that. Yeah. But she then wasn't responding back to my messages, just I'll get back in touch with you. And then, 6 or 8 weeks later, I'm going out on a medical leave. This is on hold. And so I had to, do that nurturing process that once a month, sent her something of value, an article on this, whatever. And still with that, by the time we spoke, they were already 2 days away from looking at presentations, right? Even with staying in touch that often. And so that's what can happen in these big situations, right? They have so many pieces moving that they lose track of where they're at with all of it. And that might be losing track of you. Mm-hmm. So that ongoing staying in front of them was critical to get me at that point at the last minute.
And did you know that? Did they know you through the website or LinkedIn or a personal referral?
No, they found me. It was through our website. They were specifically searching, right? Because in their industry, it's agriculture finance. In their industry, pretty much everyone uses the same 3 companies. And everyone just, throughout the country, they're in these groups and they talk about who do you use and they all use the same companies. And this one woman said she wanted to break the mold. She thought that there was probably better options out there. And she wanted to be the one that found someone to bring in. So she specifically searched for criteria and she wanted a woman. That was actually part of what she was looking for.
Oh, that's interesting.
The other 3 companies were very large training consultancies with a lot of men. And she wanted to bring in a woman to the mix, at least for comparison. Yeah. She did admit afterwards, she wasn't positive I would win it, but she wanted that opportunity.
To give it a try. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, so she was really your main contact person.
Yes.
Were you able to speak with other people, or did you feel like there were some others that could be, because we always talk about the champion, right? The person who's going to give you a lot of information. But did you feel like there could be other people that could object to the deal, or how was that whole process?
Yes. So she was absolutely going to be the internal champion, but she was not in a position of power. She was,
and a lot of champions are not in the position
exactly,
of power.
But she was the champion. So then part of why and she gave me insight on each person that was going to be there. I even had talked with her about their personality styles, who likes detail, who doesn't,
so
who's going to want
them.
a person.
Okay.
Oh, I asked her. And then actually when I had them go around, I did have them answer a question. I had 2 questions and I have to remember. One of them was going to give me a little insight onto them. I said, what is your role? How long have you been there? What makes you passionate about ag? And you know what? That just told me a lot, because they were like, well, because I grew up on a farm, or because of this, or I went to this university. So you could start seeing what was important to each other. And then after that meeting, though, I did not just follow up with her. I wrote every person, all 9 people, an individual message. So as they were talking, I was taking notes. And then when I did my follow-up, I was able to speak to each of them about what they said was important for their objective. And to me, that's what's important when you're selling to a team, is don't rely on that one champion.
Exactly. Definitely. Yeah. So that conversation of speaking with everybody, that was during that proposal. And then afterwards, you follow up with emails.
Yeah.
I'm just going to inject one thing. I think that's why women are destined to be great salespeople, because you're using, I'm very biased, but you're using a lot of very natural talent that a lot of women possess, that understanding that nuances, asking the question, but knowing their true objectives behind it. But yeah, that's amazing.
I agree as well. And I think that's why Sarah thought that same thing, and why she wanted a woman to come in and help them build their sales, because it would be a different approach. And we talk about collaboration in our selling. That's our focus. It's not about pitching. And I know people use pitching in all different ways, but it's not about knowing what to say. It's more often about knowing the right questions to lead them, so that it's their buy-in, they're owning it, and we're together and leading it, but we're not making it all about us. And so foundationally, I always tell everyone, if you can make everything you say, do, and put in writing about what's in it for them, so you have to be able to connect anything you do into what's in it for them, you have everyone's attention, because it's about them, not about you.
It's never about us. It's never about our service. Yeah. Right. And when you're sending the information proposals, well, I guess the nurturing part, during the nurturing part, when you're sending email to Sarah, were you thinking about, what were your thought process? Was it very company focused, or was it Sarah or user focused, or was it your company focused?
Oh, that's a good question. It was not about my company focus. It was articles about implementing a sales initiative, a training initiative. It was more company, because I didn't know it. I hadn't talked to her yet. So I couldn't make it personal. So I was sending her, we have a one sheet, and this is anybody in any business. It's, the top 10 questions to ask yourself when starting a training initiative. So it's an education piece that helps them as they're talking to lots of companies. But of course, it's set up that if they ask those questions, we're going to show very favorably, but it'll show deficiencies in other companies. And so, I shared with her, while your team's starting on this, here's something that might guide some of your internal discussions. Then I found an article about something in their industry, and said, oh, this made me think of you, and that it's been a month. And so I was just finding things like that to keep in touch with her.
We usually talk a lot about assets, assets meaning that some kind of a content asset, or, case study, white paper. Is it something that you use constantly? Do you update that often, or you kind of get a feeling of what kind of assets to send, kind of like a sales process? You
do, right? I think it is having your assets outlined as a library, or as something. And so we just have a spreadsheet, and we have columns based on the topic. So if I know that my follow-up for a company is going to be about hiring, I have 6 or 8 blog posts that I would trickle out to them, or I have a hiring ebook or something. And if they're talking about a Salesforce audit or analysis, then I have different things. So we have that all outlined, and we're working right now on me being able to easily give that to my admin and say, okay, I just spoke with so-and-so, here's the 3 documents I want to send to him over the next month. And then she can prompt me on having it ready and make it easier.
Yeah, so basically you're scaling that sales effort. And that's something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs could really think about. I know sometimes, it sounds really intimidating in terms of the efforts that you have to put in when selling to big companies. But once you have that process in, you could either outsource it or kind of automate part of it, not 100% of it, part of it, to make it seem less intimidating. Does that?
Right, absolutely. And if nothing else, if the automation is that, the prompt comes to you that, you met with this company 7 days ago, now's the time to send your blah, blah, blah. So that's what we're doing through our CRM. And so here we've been in existence for 20 years.
My God, wow.
And we're still finding additional ways to make things easier. So our guideline now is if we do something 3 times in a short period of time that is at least 75% overlap, that's something that we have to find a way to automate or make simpler for the future.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And now we spent a little bit of time talking about process, and let's talk about conversation. I'm sure it's something you're very passionate about. Could you just share with me that, first of all, what are the biggest challenge or mistakes that entrepreneurs face when it comes to sales conversations?
Well, I think it's when sales conversations, the biggest mistake is entrepreneurs often start your business because you're so passionate about something, right? Yeah. So anytime someone's willing to listen to us, right, we're ready to talk. And that's not a conversation. And so a conversation is 2 people with both having information that's interesting or important to each other. And so in sales conversations, it's as much about us knowing from them information as us sharing information with them. Because today's buyers, whether it's big companies, somebody within a big company, or it's not, they've got information, right? They've got, there's so much information available. They've got experiences and they've got opinions. And if we don't find out whatever we're talking about with them, what their experience, the information they already know, and what their opinions are, we could spend 10 or 20 minutes talking to them and digging ourselves, in a hole versus sharing value with them. So we have to go in and say, where are they coming from? Because now I either have to clarify some maybe information about what I offer that they have a information about, or maybe I just need to confirm and let them know that what their opinion is exactly what's on trend or what's, going to get them to whatever objective they're trying to achieve. So instead of coming in and being the information, the be-all information giver, we are now a filter. And people have so much information that it's slowing down decision making. So if we can help them cull down the information to what's most important, what's the highest priorities for them, what is it that they need to consider to get to a decision versus the things that are going to keep them in analysis paralysis. Mm-hmm. There is great value in entrepreneurs or professional salespeople that can help do that.
We're always talking about that conversation, having that conversation with our prospects. But sometimes, for small entrepreneurs or for my, selling to big companies, the challenge is not that we don't want to have that conversation, but sometimes the challenge is how to get our prospects to open up. It's sometimes we are eager to have conversation with our prospects, but the moment they know that we're kind of the seller, so we got that buyer-seller position going on, they kind of just, they become defensive. They're like, hey, I'm not going to divulge any information because she's going to use that information to sell to me. Do you have any tricks or hacks to help the prospects open up and get them to start talking?
Well, you have to earn the right to get them to open up to you, and it starts with how you set up that meeting, right? What is the objective? Is the objective so that I can come in and share with you what my company's doing and why it's important to you? Is it I'm coming in because we've got this new product and it's setting the world on fire and I want to tell you about it? That's a very different objective than I'd like to spend some time determining whether what you're trying to accomplish is a good fit for what we do, and if we can help you do it easier, quicker, or less expensively. So now, there's a difference.
Actually, just when you're talking about it, I can instantly see how your magic power is to always about them. And you talked about it at the earlier of the conversation about the fact that it has to be about them, what's in it for them. And even now you're talking when you're setting objectives, I could already see that there is a pattern of reminding them that, hey, I'm doing this because of you.
Yes. And so it starts then.
Yeah.
And then, and then when we get in there, we call it the 3-step start. Okay. We have to greet, even if they have a scheduled appointment, nobody is sitting there and just waiting for you. They're doing other things. So we have to help break their preoccupation and earn the right for their attention. Mm-hmm. And then we have to explain why we have this time together. So it's restating that objective. And right then is the game changer, because we can say, this is what we're meeting about. But most people will say, well, this is what I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Instead of, we're meeting today, and what else do you want to make sure we accomplish? So right from the beginning, you're letting them see, hey, I get to drive what's going to happen next too. Mm-hmm. So what is it that you want to make sure happens in the next 30 minutes that we're together? Mm-hmm. And then explain, clarify, and then you have to immediately turn it into asking them a question. And so that question is going to be different. It could be a question on connecting with something that maybe if you spoke with them on the phone that you can bring back in to help break their preoccupation. That, when we spoke, I know you were right in the middle of finishing up a project, or you were right in the middle of this, or you pushed this meeting out because you had vacation last week. I mean, whatever that little snippet is, and of course that means you have to do your research as well. So, people always say, I don't want people to know I've been stalking them before I meet them. And I think today's buyers expect that you have done research. And if you haven't, shame on you.
Yeah. And I often do that as a humor when I'm in front of a client, say that, hey, just for your information, I have been stalking you. Just FYI. But as a humor to kind of say, okay, I'm not really stalking you, but I have done my homework kind of thing.
And they appreciate it.
They appreciate it, yeah.
And I always think that, we shouldn't spend time in that precious face-to-face or telephone time on information that we could have gotten in advance, right?
That's true.
So we shouldn't be asking them, oh, so what does your company do? Or, if we don't know those basics, so what we want to do is say, in my research, I've, noticed that your company really focuses on this. And right now, because of what's going on in the industry, there's new regulations impacting this. What's that mean in your job? Mm-hmm. Now, how does that just position me now?
Yeah. You're right. Go towards the most important topic. You're not wasting their time. You're being respectful and you're being professional.
And I'm showing them that you were important enough to me that I've done some research.
Yeah.
And I can also say, in talking with other people in your business, in the same role as you in other businesses, we're seeing a trend that blah, blah, blah. Now I just established some credibility without pitching, right? Mm-hmm. We work with so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. I can just say, in a conversation with, Joe at whatever, we discovered this. How are you finding that work in your company? So I can position myself, I can educate, I can give credentials, all in a way that is a setup into getting more information from them.
Perfect. So, because you obviously have a lot of experience in terms of that sales conversation. So I'm going to ask you a bit of tougher question. I'm sure it's not. But let's assume that you get this process worked, but assuming that you got someone who's relatively aggressive and, who's just maybe in a bad mood. And it happens. Sometimes, they probably had a bad day. They weren't ready to have that conversation. They didn't want to talk about it. Do you have a little trick that kind of just ease up the tension or make your prospect a little bit more comfortable?
I think.
Or have you even encountered that situation?
Well, of course I have. I came out of a meeting once, and this is a lot of TMI, too much information, but I literally had sweat rings down to my waist because this woman was so aggressive, including when I had talked with her before. She was the president of this group, and she had invited in a few managers. And interestingly, I knew 2 out of the 4 managers from other work we had done within that company. But when we all sat down together, what she did is she had to take the power. Like, she needed to be in control. So I asked a question, and I said, well, when we're looking at this, what has been the experience from all of you? And she took her hand and she slammed it on the table. Oh no, you're not asking the questions. I'm asking the questions today.
Oh,
and
wow.
That was how the meeting started. So yes, I've been on the receiving end. The good news is she was out of that position within 6 months because it was a huge company. And she had ticked off so many of the other divisions. Mm-hmm. And so she was gone. And guess what? We are now working with them for our 19th year straight. So wow. She was around year 6, and there was a little bump in us working with them. But yes, I've dealt with them. So here's the thing. I think in the moment, so much of what you can do is going to depend on your personality, your comfort, and what you've done with them in the past. So like you said, humor can work. Or you can say, you know what, I know things change, and even though we had this time scheduled, it seems like there's some external factors going on. Should we reschedule? Yeah. I think people don't go there enough to say, can we get a better time? So another time I was in a meeting with a group of people, and the company owner, who was kind of retired, all of a sudden his assistant walks in the room and said, so-and-so wants to know why you're all meeting and he's not in here. And the company president very sheepishly got up and walked out the room. And I looked at the rest of the manager. I go, I think we're probably going to be done for the day, aren't we? And they're all like, yeah. So, I mean, there's so many things that can happen, but it's okay to call it. Yeah. Because trying to push forward, as you know, doesn't get you anywhere. Mm-hmm.
And don't take it personally. A lot of times, especially this kind of things happen, and you're thinking that, oh, maybe the person's not interested in my product, maybe they're not interested in what I have to say. But sometimes they probably just had a pretty bad day, and it happens quite often. So,
well, I have found in research that the best predictor of someone's attitude and behavior in the next 20 minutes is the recency effect. It's what's just happened to them. Mm-hmm. So the last 20 minutes. So before you contact them, whether it's scheduled or not, whatever they've just experienced carries over into your time with them. Mm-hmm. And so that's why always having a very purposeful start to your conversation, where you're revisiting the objective, revisiting the amount of time you have, and asking a question to get them connected to break their preoccupation is so important, because you have to earn that right. Even if you have that meeting, you still haven't earned the right to have an open information exchange. That happens in the conversation.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And another topic that you're really passionate about is growing the teams, growing your sales teams. And you've helped a lot of companies growing their sales teams, hire the right sales managers. From your experience, what are the key attributes of successful salespeople? And as a small entrepreneur, can you develop those attributes?
Oh, that's good. That's a good question. So as a small entrepreneur, your first hire, especially a sales hire or a management hire, is so critical. And so many people don't give it the attention and the planning and the carry through that it needs, because we're in that position when we're overwhelmed. And this has happened to me too. We're so overwhelmed that it's I just need another body, and we're just ready to, give it away. So we can make mistakes. So what we need to do is be very purposeful. And like any other purchase that you would be making for your company, what's my objective? What are those features, that are most necessary? So for me, it comes down to different attributes depending on the type of sales, the type of leadership, etc. But you need skill and you need will. And that is the difference that people don't look for. They'll look and say, oh, they graduated from the same program I did. Therefore, they're just like me, and off I go. And they don't look for the right evidence or proof that that's true. Mm-hmm. Or we see someone's got a certain GPA, or they've got, they've worked for a certain company. That's a big one. Ooh, they worked for so-and-so. Oh, that means that, none of those things are good predictors of that person being successful for you. Mm-hmm. What are good predictors are Do they have to have a certain skill set because you probably don't have time to train them? So you have to find ways to test that. So even for a salesperson, you should work into your hiring process, an opportunity where they have to sell to you. And that you need to be paying attention to everything that someone is doing throughout their engagement while you're hiring them, because that's them at their best. So when you're looking for a salesperson and they're not following up with you timely, or they've promised to give you something and it doesn't materialize, or they don't do the right follow up, all of those things they're not going to do when they're in sales either. So if those things are going to be important for your business and then staying in touch with prospects and moving sales through, the process in the pipeline, if they're not exhibiting it when they're selling themselves to you, they're not going to with your clients as well. And I think most entrepreneurs, and we had talked about this earlier, are so excited and about their company and they want to pitch it. They want to convince somebody why it's great. And instead of saying, you know what, I've got a great opportunity and I need to vet out and evaluate, because anyone coming on my team has to continue to make it great. So I've got to find out that they've got what it takes. And so skill is necessary, but then the will, and that is initiative. That is emotional intelligence. That's being very clear on their goals, because that's an important part in selling. If they don't have personal goals, and if someone says, well, I'm goal oriented, but then you say, do you have goals in writing? How often do you? And they don't have a plan for that, they're not really a strong goal-focused person. But then the other key is beliefs. So, and beliefs come into belief in themselves, belief in the role of being either a leader or a salesperson, and belief in the value of what they're offering. So in selling, if someone says, well, I can sell anything, right away, huge red flag. Yeah. You want someone that is going to want to learn your business, learn what you offer, be able to make those value connections to your prospective buyers, because they're the ones that are going to win bigger.
Do you have a way to evaluate the sales talent once they're hired, or would you recommend?
Yeah, so there's a couple of assessments. So I have worked with assessments for 25 years, and there are a lot of them out there. Yeah. The problem is for sales, most of them are based on personalities, and personalities are not a good predictor of sales success, because someone being extroverted does not make them a great salesperson. They say, well, they can talk to anybody. Okay, but can they move a sale along? You're smiling. What's your thought on that?
No, I do find that a lot of sales and amazing sales pro I admire, a lot of times they're not actually super sociable, and there's a lot of people who are very right off the bat, you might find them the opposite of being sociable. And so I thought that was interesting when you have that comment about the common personalities. And I would love to hear your thoughts about that. Yeah.
Right. So we should talk again about that. So anyway, we have two assessments that are not personality based, and they are based on the science of sales, which includes desire, commitment, being responsible for your outcomes, being coachable, and then, of course, being able to ask questions and all the other skill set. But it also looks at that will, because it is both. And if you look at look at entrepreneurs, what makes them successful? There's a skill set, there's an experience level, but most of them have that will to be successful, right? Because that's what made you willing to quit a corporate job and start something on your own, is that drive. And we call them the success drivers. So I think you need an objective assessment, because you can interview and fall in love with a candidate and ignore some very clear signals that they would work or they wouldn't. So you need objective data. You need good interviews, which is behavioral-based interview questions focused on digging for information on what they've done, not what their opinion is. And a quick example on that is, so many people will say to me, well, this person doesn't have a sales background, but they said that they'd like to be in sales. And I'm like, okay, but all their career choices have never been in sales. So now you're taking a risk. And what are they going to tell you in an interview? Well, no, I don't really want a sales job. I really am hoping to get this job because I want to get marketing. I'm hoping that, I'll start here, but as soon as possible, I'm going to do something else.
Jump ship. Yeah.
Right. And so, if you ask a direct question like that, what's the person going to say? So instead, you need to look for proof or evidence of them doing any kind of behaviors. Going back to the goal example. Okay, so you're goal oriented. Tell me about the last goal that you specifically planned out with dates, accountabilities, etc. Get them telling you the story. What was it? When did you set that? Where do you keep your records of that? How often do you look at that? How do you keep yourself on track? What have you done when you've gotten off track? But you get them in a situation where they've got to give you a proof of specifics versus, because people know the theory, right? We all know the theory of setting goals, but tell me when you've done it, or tell me about the last sale that you lost. What happened? And, listen for, are they accepting responsibility, or is it, well, my manager wouldn't let me cut the price, so we lost out to the competition because they were cheaper than us. Yeah. Well, that's someone that's not going to take responsibility for their own actions. So that's the kind of things to look for.
I'm going to ask you probably just closing and then just closing questions. But one last question about, especially our audience, they're all small entrepreneurs. And when it comes to hiring, they often have this question: do I hire sales administrator or sales assistant, or do I hire a sales manager? Is there any way for them to give them a word of advice, whether it's time for them to outsource the entire sales effort or just get an assistant to help them out?
I think that your first thing should almost always be looking at an assistant. Because a good assistant can make you 50% more productive. So if you are your best salesperson, you don't want to lose that. And too often I see entrepreneurs like, great, I can now dump that function.
Yeah.
And even like the top Shark Tank people, they'll all say, if you have money and time to spend, everything should always be in sales more than other things. So if you can delegate other aspects of your business and get support to help you sell more, go there. If you hire a sales manager, and I see entrepreneurs do this, I want to hire a sales manager because then they can grow the sales team and we can have all these. But you know what? A sales manager wants to manage salespeople. They don't want to sell. So they're like, I'm going to hire a player coach. Yeah. And I see it go bad all the time because often they're not going to sell enough to be able to have a team to coach for maybe a year, 18 months, or 2 years. Yeah. And they get disgruntled or dissatisfied with that.
Yeah. Or there's a lot of times, a lot of entrepreneurs, they look for commission-only salespeople. Have you ever? Yeah.
You know what? Any salesperson that's willing to sell in commission, I think is a gem because they are confident that they can make a living. But it's been proven that especially in this last 5 to 10 years, there are so fewer people that are willing to do that. But then it's how do you make the right base that it's attracting people so that they've got some things, that they don't have to worry about, but still isn't so comfortable that they can live off of it. And I've had conversations just last week with 2 company presidents, and they are paying such a high base salary, $65,000 to $85,000, that a lot of their people don't care about selling anything else because they can live off of that money.
Wow, yeah, that is a big topic. So if people want to connect with you, know more about it, I think the book, I would definitely recommend the book. But is there any other things that you want to share with the audience and that would really benefit the small entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so what we did for your audience is we created a website page, and it's salesproinsider.com/women making big sales, WMBS. And I'm gonna offer a free ebook on hiring. So it's gonna give you a lot more that I just talked about with Skill and Will. It's gonna give you interview questions.
Perfect.
It's gonna give you a document to plan out for that. So it's gonna help you with that. And then on that page is also all my other contact information. So if you're just trying to make some of those decisions that you said, I offer 15 to 30 minute free consultation strategy sessions. I'll help you And then if you need our services, great. And if you don't, and I was able to help you, I know that'll pay back in the future. I believe that women entrepreneurs are so powerful. Yeah. And if I can, from all my years of experience, help them save some time and save some frustration, I want to do that.
Yeah, that is amazing. That's great. So, anyway, I'm just gonna link that. I'll put up that link in the show note. And for anybody who's interested in thinking about growing your group, growing your company, and who to hire, how to hire, I know that sometimes you finally get the one or two big clients, and you realize that it's time to scale, and you weren't ready because you just kept thinking about selling. Well, then here is the chance to really talk to Nancy, because she's been helping a lot of companies do that. Well, thank you very much for your time and talking to us, sharing your insights, and hopefully next time we can have you back and talk more about hiring and growing the teams.
All right, that sounds great. Good luck to everyone.
Thank you.